Lars Mittank was a 28-year-old German man, healthy, cheerful, and full of life. In 2014, he traveled with friends to the Bulgarian resort town of Golden Sands for a summer vacation, a trip that was supposed to be nothing more than sun, sea, and good memories. But what began as a carefree holiday would end in one of the most baffling disappearances of the decade. During the trip, Lars got into a minor altercation at a bar, reportedly over football team rivalries. He was punched in the face, suffering a ruptured eardrum. A doctor advised him not to fly home immediately due to the injury and prescribed antibiotics while his friends returned to Germany. Lars stayed behind to recover, alone. That's when things began to take a strange turn. Over the next few days, Lars's mother received disturbing phone calls. He told her that people were following him, that someone wanted to kill or drug him. He seemed paranoid, terrified, and confused. Security cameras at his hotel showed him pacing the hallways, looking out windows, hiding in the elevator, as if he were fleeing from something unseen. The hotel staff later said Lars left suddenly in the middle of the night, leaving his belongings behind. He made his way to Varna Airport the next morning, intending to fly home. But there, his behavior grew even stranger. At the airport medical office, a doctor who examined him noted that Lars appeared nervous and disoriented. Without warning, he leapt to his feet and shouted, "I don't want to die here." Then he ran out of the airport, leaving his luggage and passport behind. Surveillance cameras captured his final known moments, sprinting across the airport parking lot, climbing over a fence, and vanishing into a nearby field and wooded area. That was the last confirmed sighting of Lars Mittank. Despite extensive searches, no trace of him has ever been found. Theories abound. Some believe his paranoia was caused by a reaction to his antibiotics, which can occasionally induce psychotic episodes. Others think he suffered a head injury that affected his perception of reality. More ominous theories suggest he may have been targeted or involved in something darker than a simple vacation gone wrong. Years later, his mother still holds hope that Lars is alive somewhere, suffering from amnesia or living off the grid. His case has since become a haunting mystery, a chilling reminder of how a normal trip can spiral into the unexplainable. The disappearance of Lars Mittank remains one of Europe's most unsettling unsolved cases, a story frozen in time, replayed endlessly through a few seconds of airport footage and a single, desperate scream for help. In the early 1900s, a small town in Louisiana was shaken by a mystery that would puzzle the nation for generations. It began in 1912 when 4-year-old Bobby Dunbar vanished during a family fishing trip to Swayze Lake. One moment, he was playing by the water's edge. The next, he was gone. Panic swept through the Dunbar family as search parties scoured the swamp, fearing the worst. Alligators, deep water, and dense brush made the search dangerous. But despite weeks of effort, there was no trace of Bobby. Then, 8 months later, hope flickered to life. A child matching Bobby's description was found in Mississippi, traveling with a handyman named William Cantwell Walters. Walters claimed the boy was not Bobby Dunbar at all, but a child named Bruce Anderson, the son of a woman who worked for his family. Yet when Bobby's mother saw the child, she broke down in tears, declaring he was her son. The boy was brought home to Louisiana, where the town celebrated his miraculous return. Newspapers called his story of hope and faith rewarded. But not everyone was convinced. The boy seemed uneasy, distant, even frightened. And when Bruce Anderson's mother, Julia, came forward, she insisted the boy was her son, not the Dunbars. She testified that Walters had taken Bruce with her permission to visit relatives, and that the boy was wrongly taken from them. Julia was poor and without influence, while the Dunbars were well-respected and supported by the local community. In the end, the court sided with the Dunbars. Walters was convicted of kidnapping and spent years in prison, maintaining his innocence until his release. For decades, the story was told as a triumph, a lost child miraculously found. Bobby Dunbar grew up, married, had children of his own, and lived a full life. But nearly a century later, the truth began to unravel. In 2004, DNA testing was performed on Bobby Dunbar's son and a descendant of the real Dunbar family. The results were shocking. There was no biological relation. The boy who came home in 1913 was not Bobby Dunbar. The real Bobby Dunbar's fate remains a mystery to this day, lost to the waters of Swayze Lake. The boy who lived his life as Bobby was most likely Bruce Anderson, forever caught in a tragic case of mistaken identity. The case of Bobby Dunbar is a haunting reminder of how love, grief, and desperation can blur the truth, and how one family's search for hope changed two lives forever. It was a quiet spring morning in Los Angeles, 1928, when 9-year-old Walter Collins vanished without a trace. His mother, Christine Collins, kissed him goodbye before he left to see a movie near their home in Lincoln Heights. He never came back. Christine's world collapsed. She searched the streets, called neighbors, and went to the police. Weeks turned into months, and the city buzzed with theories. The disappearance of Walter Collins gripped Los Angeles, becoming one of the most haunting mysteries of its time. The police were under immense pressure. The department's reputation was already in shambles, tainted by corruption and scandal. They needed a victory, a success story to win back public trust. Then, 5 months later, came the miracle call. A boy claiming to be Walter was found in Illinois. The Los Angeles Police Department quickly turned it into a media spectacle. Cameras flashed as Christine was reunited with the boy at the train station. But when she looked into his face, her heart sank. He wasn't Walter. The resemblance was there, but a mother knows her child. She told the police, "This is not my son." But the police refused to listen. They insisted she was mistaken, even convincing her to take the boy home to try him out. Desperate and confused, Christine did as they asked. For 3 weeks, she tried to believe it could be true. But the boy's height, his mannerisms, even his memories, all wrong. Finally, she confronted the police again, demanding the truth. Captain J.J. Jones accused her of being hysterical, unfit, even delusional. To silence her, they had Christine Collins committed to a psychiatric ward. While she was trapped in the asylum, the case took a dark new turn. A chilling discovery in Wineville, California, revealed a series of murders committed by Gordon Stewart Northcott, a man who had kidnapped and killed several boys. Investigators soon found evidence suggesting that Walter Collins had been one of his victims. Christine was released from the asylum after Northcott's arrest, but her heartbreak was beyond measure. Despite Northcott's conviction and execution, he refused to give her the closure she needed, never confirming whether Walter was truly among the murdered children. Christine Collins spent the rest of her life searching for the truth, never giving up hope that her son might still be alive somewhere. The disappearance of Walter Collins remains one of the most haunting cases in American history, a story of a mother's love, a corrupt system's cruelty, and a mystery that still echoes nearly a century later. Kayla Reed was just 15 years old when she vanished without a trace from her quiet suburban neighborhood in the fall of 2014. She was the kind of girl everyone seemed to know, bright, kind, and full of life. Her friends described her as the one who always smiled first, the one who made everyone else feel included. But on that cool October evening, something went terribly wrong. It started like any ordinary day. Kayla left school around 3:30, walking home with her best friend, Emma. The two chatted about an upcoming school dance and their weekend plans. They split ways at the corner of Maple Drive, just 2 blocks from Kayla's house. That was the last confirmed sighting of her. When Kayla didn't come home for dinner, her mother assumed she'd stopped by a friend's house. But as the hours passed, worry turned to panic. By midnight, the police were notified, and a full search began. Neighbors joined in, calling her name through the darkened streets, flashlights cutting across backyards and wooded trails. There was no sign of Kayla, no backpack, no phone, nothing. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The following days brought rumors, theories, and heartbreak. Some believed she had run away. Others thought she might have been taken. Her phone had last pinged near a park half a mile from her home. But when police combed the area, they found nothing. No footprints, no discarded belongings, no evidence of a struggle. As weeks turned to months, posters with Kayla's face began to fade from the telephone poles. Candlelight vigils were held, and her mother refused to give up hope. She kept Kayla's room exactly as it was, bed neatly made, her favorite hoodie still draped over the chair. Then, nearly a year later, a small clue emerged. A hiker deep in the woods outside town found a necklace, one her mother instantly recognized. It was a silver heart pendant, the same one Kayla had worn the day she disappeared. But even that discovery only deepened the mystery. No other trace of her was ever found. Today, the disappearance of Kayla Reed remains unsolved. Her story lives on through the determination of her family and the community that still searches for answers. It's a haunting reminder of how quickly a life can change and how a single moment can echo forever. Kayla Reed's name is still spoken by those who remember her smile, her laughter, and the hope that somewhere, somehow, she might still be out there. It was a cold February evening in 2004 when 21-year-old nursing student Maura Murray vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of confusion and unanswered questions that still haunt investigators to this day. Maura was bright, athletic, and ambitious, a student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, pursuing a future in nursing. But in the days leading up to her disappearance, something was clearly wrong. On February 9th, she emailed her professors saying there had been a death in her family, but there hadn't been. It was a lie, one that still puzzles everyone who studies this case. That same afternoon, Maura packed up her car with clothes, toiletries, textbooks, and a map of New Hampshire. She withdrew a small amount of cash from an ATM, purchased alcohol from a nearby liquor store, and began driving north. No one knows for sure where she was headed. Some believe she planned a short getaway. Others think she meant to start a new life. Several hours later, on a dark, rural road in Haverhill, New Hampshire, Maura's black Saturn crashed into a snowbank. A local bus driver stopped to check on her. He said she appeared shaken but uninjured. She told him she had called roadside assistance and insisted she didn't need help. The man left, but when police arrived just minutes later, Maura was gone. Her car was locked. The airbags had deployed. Inside were her personal belongings, clothes, school books, a box of wine, and a partially empty bottle of liquor. But there was no sign of Maura. No footprints led away from the scene. No calls were made from her phone, and no confirmed sightings were ever verified. Search teams scoured the area for days, using dogs, helicopters, and thermal cameras, but nothing turned up. It was as if Maura had simply vanished in a thin air. Over the years, theories have ranged from accident to abduction, even voluntary disappearance. Some think she was picked up by a stranger. Others suspect she ran into the woods and succumbed to the freezing temperatures. What makes Maura's case so haunting is how many clues lead nowhere. A broken windshield, a missing backpack, cryptic online searches for mountain destinations. Each piece of evidence seems to add more mystery instead of answers. 2 decades later, her family still searches for the truth. They've held vigils, organized searches, and pleaded for information. Yet, Maura Murray remains missing, her disappearance frozen in time. A chilling reminder that sometimes the most ordinary moments can hide the darkest mysteries. To this day, one question echoes through the cold New Hampshire woods. What really happened to Maura Murray? It was May 9th, 1994, in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, the night before graduation for 17-year-old Cleshindra Hall. Known for her bright smile and ambitious spirit, Cleshindra had her future mapped out. She was a straight-A student, a cheerleader, and had dreams of becoming a pediatrician. After finishing her shift at an after-school job, she was supposed to head home. But that night, Cleshindra Hall never made it back. She had been working part-time at the home office of a woman named Annie Hornsby, who ran a business providing educational programs for children. It was a safe, quiet neighborhood, the kind where no one expected danger to be lurking. Around 8:30 that evening, Cleshindra called her mother from Hornsby's home to say she'd be leaving soon. Her mom waited up, but as the hours passed, the door never opened. At first, her family thought maybe she'd stopped by a friend's house. But Cleshindra wasn't the kind of teen who just disappeared. By morning, panic set in. Her parents called police, reporting her missing. The officers searched her route home, a short drive, just a few minutes away. Her car was still at home, her purse untouched, and there was no sign of a struggle. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Investigators spoke with Annie Hornsby, who told them Cleashindra had left her house that night around 8:30. But no one saw her after that. Neighbors didn't report any unusual activity. There were no witnesses, no security cameras, and no trace of the girl who had so much ahead of her. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into years. Volunteers scoured fields, woods, and creeks, hoping for a clue. The FBI even got involved, but every lead led to a dead end. Rumors spread. Some thought she had run away. Others believed she'd been abducted. But her family never gave up. They knew Cleashindra wouldn't just leave behind her dreams, her friends, or the life she loved. To this day, no one knows what happened after that final phone call. The woman whose home she worked in has remained a person of interest, but no charges were ever filed. There's never been a body, never been closure, just a mother's hope and a mystery that's haunted Pine Bluff for more than 30 years. The disappearance of Cleashindra Hall remains one of Arkansas's most chilling unsolved cases, a reminder of how quickly a bright future can fade into darkness, and how a single night can leave questions that echo for decades. Heather Elvis was just 20 years old when she vanished from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, in December 2013. A bright, ambitious young woman with dreams of working in cosmetology, Heather was full of energy and excitement about the future. But behind her smile, she was entangled in a complicated and dangerous relationship, one that would ultimately lead to her disappearance. Heather had been involved with a man named Sidney Moorer, a married father of 3. Their affair began while Heather was working as a hostess at a local restaurant. For a while, it was passionate and secretive. But when Sidney's wife, Tammy, found out, the affair exploded into chaos. Tammy began harassing Heather, sending her threatening messages, and even forcing Sidney to end things. Heather tried to move on, finding comfort in her friends and her new independence. Yet, something still pulled her back toward Sidney. On the night of December 17th, 2013, Heather went on a first date with another man, a sign she was finally ready to let go of her past. After the date, she returned home, but around 2 a.m., her phone rang. It was Sidney. The two spoke briefly, and shortly after, Heather drove out to a secluded boat landing along the Waccamaw River. Her car, a green Dodge Intrepid, was later found there, doors locked, keys inside, and no sign of Heather. The search for Heather became one of the most intense investigations Myrtle Beach had ever seen. Volunteers scoured woods, fields, and waterways. Flyers with her face were everywhere. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered evidence that pointed back to Sidney and Tammy Moorer. Cell phone records showed Sidney had called Heather that night from a payphone, luring her out. Surveillance footage placed the Moorers near the area where Heather's car was found. In 2014, both Sidney and Tammy were arrested, charged with kidnapping and obstruction of justice. During the trials, prosecutors argued that the Moorers conspired together to get rid of Heather, jealous and enraged by the affair. Tammy, known for her controlling nature, was said to have forced Sidney to lure Heather out as part of a cruel revenge plot. But without a body, proving what truly happened was difficult. Years passed, and while both were convicted on related charges, Tammy for kidnapping and Sidney for obstruction, neither ever revealed where Heather's remains might be. The Elvis family still visits the boat landing, leaving flowers and prayers, hoping one day for answers. Heather Elvis's disappearance is a haunting reminder of how jealousy, obsession, and deceit can destroy lives. More than a decade later, her story still echoes through the Carolina coast, a mystery without closure, a young life stolen, and a family still waiting for the truth.